I think I'll get started. So, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today on what is actually, admittedly, our first webinar for this year. It has been a little bit of a break, about 6 months since we ran our last one, but it's no excuse, but it has been a crazy year on our side with rebranding and all sorts of changes. We've also lined up a couple more webinars you might have seen for this year as well. So I'm very pleased to say Hans is presenting not only today, but the others that are also lined up. Hans, I believe you started the week with a hectic and always enjoyable VDA license partner meeting in Berlin.
Yeah, yes, I did. Hello, Taryn, and hello, everybody out there.
Wonderful. And now I don't mind. I don't think you'll mind if I say now I think you're home in Austria with your mom getting spoiled. So I look forward to
Indeed.
Yes. So it happens to the best of us. How enjoyable.
Yeah.
And Hans, you are the master of today's topic, really, being an IATF third-party auditor and something crazy like almost 3,000 days auditing experience across the globe, I believe. So thank you for presenting. So we pick the topics for these webinars really based on FAQs. What are our team of consultants getting? And one of the hot topics recently has been, or the biggest topic for this year so far, has been the IATF certification and maintenance rules, the rollout of the 6th edition, which is today's topic and we'll get into. Just in terms of housekeeping today, please go ahead, use the chat function, use reactions, etc. We will do questions and answers open forum at the end of the presentation. If you could please, just to help me keep track of things, use the function on the top bar that is Q&A if you've got something you'd like Hans to answer instead of chat, but I will try and monitor the chat as well. And lastly, yes, as always, we will be sharing these recordings on our podcast and our blog, as well as the slides from today. Hans, I know you've got a very detailed presentation coming up for today. There's quite a lot of content for it. But if I can ask, maybe this is one of the typical kind of dumb blonde questions I ask. I'm not totally clear. What's the difference in the books? Like there's the IATF book, and then there's the rules book, and that's what's moved from the 5th to the 6th edition. So can you please clarify for me what those are?
Yeah, Taryn, I sure can, and I believe the majority of our listeners in the audience would know. The IATF requirements book basically stipulates the minimum automotive requirements that apply for any automotive company that wants to deliver products, components, modules into the automotive industry, how to implement the quality management system. And the rules book basically lays out all the requirements to manage and maintain this very complex certification process for actually every interested party. So it's catering not only for the certification bodies. I mean, they are hit with quite a variety of requirements in those rules books, but also for us as the certification auditors. And then, of course, for the clients, that's why we have so many listeners here today. There will be quite some hectic changes. And also the automotive clients or the clients' customers have to come to the party in certain areas. So it's quite a number of interested parties, and the rules book just stipulates the requirements for each and every of those to manage and maintain the certification scheme according to IATF 6949. That's what it is in a nutshell.
Okay, I get it. Thank you. Hans, I'm going to hand over to you for today's presentation. If you don't mind, I'm going to be going off camera. However, I might pop on if I happen to have a random question or two, and I will be monitoring any questions coming up from our guests today.
Sure.
Over to
Thanks,
you.
Tara.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick and open this presentation. So here we go. I hope everybody can see. Yeah, the sixth edition, interesting, came out now in March this year. It was released and it comes to effect January 1, 2025. Why are these dates different and important? I will elaborate on that as we go through. This presentation, folks, just really caters for the key changes and not necessarily each and every movement from rules 5 to rule 6. That being said, it worked in a lot of more clarification. So pretty much the same rules as we had in the rules 5, but with more clarification and the likes of. So as I said from this slide, 31st March it was released, and it comes into effect January 1, 2025. So it has 10 chapters. Chapter 1 deals with the scope of the rules book, the eligibility for the certification, and this is going to start with an area that I would like to bring across in the area of remote support locations. Remote support locations have been in place for a very long time, but what is new here is that if you work with remote support locations or standalone remote functions, they shall be audited now by one and the same IATF recognized certification bodies. And that is new. We had it back in the days where we needed to request audit reports from another CB because they were auditing central functions and we were only auditing the site. So that is no more longer foreseen, I should say, and quite a substantial change, I would say, as it requires a lot of regulations in your contracts. Okay. So every certification body that has a contract with a client for a manufacturing site or with a remote location shall have at a minimum now at least one manufacturing site with it. So that is new. That was not the case in rules 5. If you have, we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A session at the end. So if you have your questions, just please note your clause numbers and the likes of, so we can go back to the slides and discuss it then in front of the content slide, if I may ask you. 1.1 certification structure. That's going to hit quite a fair amount of companies. I don't know if you remember those extended manufacturing sites, and they are not new, but what was always quite a difficult discussions with the CBs was the fact, what is the distance allowed and the likes of, how far away can an extended manufacturing site be located to still count as an EMS and the likes of. So the basic requirements stand the same. So there's got to be the management that has to be controlled out of the main site and the central management system, and it has to be one legal entity. So there's nothing has changed that, but what has been specified now clearly is that the EMS shall sit within a distance of 10 miles or 16 kilometers or a 16 minutes drive distance. So that is a lot more precise now. That is a more clear. And I can already see that quite a fair amount of clients that I do certification audits with will raise their eyebrows right now and said, "Oh, what are we going to do here?" And Terence said it earlier. I just came back from a VDA conference in Berlin, and basically all the oversight ruling guys were there from VDA, QMC, and from SMMT. And FIA was there as well. And we had discussions in between. So there is not much sense of humor when it comes to identifying and playing those rules now. It's very, very strict. So happy days in front of many clients that have their EMSs at this point in time outside of reach, if I may call it that. Okay. So basically what that means, if you're not within those requirements, what you called back in the days an EMS shall now have its own separate certificate, which has a cost implication, of course, and the admin work behind new contracts with certification bodies and the likes of probably not providing too much fun there, but the rules have been stipulated as is. Then we go to
Sorry, Hans, you're muted.
Yeah.
I think you need to go back.
I was shifting.
Yeah,
sorry guys. I was shifting it around with the little window because I had Terry in front of me. So chapter number 2 deals with regulations and requirements mainly for the certification bodies, where it says now the certification body is prohibited of offering any kinds of service nearly that's in and around training or consultancies. This area of the new Rule 6 book is more precise in describing as to what the certification body is not allowed to do going forward, because it's not a new requirement per se, but it's more specific, and it also includes supplier audits on behalf of a client, which was not stipulated in the previous version. So a certification could also not do any supplier audits on behalf of a client that they certify. Chapter number 3, certification body, legal contract requirements. Folks, be aware, you have to implement according to the new rules as of January 1st, 2025. I just want to warn you because there are about 78,000 certificates out there worldwide, and a significantly few amount of certification bodies. So there's a huge contractual process in front of you. So I can only advise you to not wait till Q4 of this year and start the process ASAP, because it will run into capacity issues. There's no other way than doing so, and the timeline or the due date of January 1, 2025 will not be shifted. It's not a moving, and they made this very clear. It's not a moving goalpost. So the sooner the merrier to engage with your CPEs, or if you now intend to change or transfer to other CPEs, to start this process ASAP, just to make sure that you have all the contracts and all your ducks in a row, because the standard clearly says you need to have all contracts signed off and legally put in place before any single audit activities may start or can start, I should say. And and we're talking about half year, give or take, 6 months. So please listen to this advice to engage with your CP really as soon as possible and start this process of getting the Rule 6 incorporated in new contracts, if you want to call it that. Chapter number 4, personnel resources. Yeah, that is more relevant for the certification body or the certification auditors like myself. We also have to, as per the rules, have to continuously grow and increase our knowledge and skills about the topics that are ever changing. And we are all connected to an online training concept, which they call CPD. And we also have to go through mandatory trainings. What is said here clearly is that we must mess around with those due dates to not get in troubles, and that all the qualified auditors must successfully not only do it in time but also successfully complete to maintain the qualifications out there. That's what this clause says, and in chapter number 5, I believe, is the area that interests you all out there the most, because that is affecting the clients of any CB potentially quite severely, also in costs. I would like to believe. Let's kick this off. Number 1, back in the days in Rules 5, you had the option in your surveillance audits to do it either in a 6 months, 9 months, or a 12 months period. Although the majority of clients were using the 12-month surveillance audits anyway, you had the opportunity to go for 6 and 9 months. This has been removed, so you can only, so the mandatory 12-month surveillance audits is the one and only option we have now for the surveillance audits, and the versions, or the options, I should say, for the 6 and month cycles is no more longer available and has been removed. What has also been changed is the sense of humor if surveillance audits are not managed within a newly set time frame, which is now plus minus 3 months. Guys, you got to be very careful. Back in the days, we had -3 plus 1 month in the Rules 5. That has been changed to plus minus 3 months. The pros for this adjustment, the way I look at it, is it provides you as the clients out there bigger flexibility in when you're conducting your audits. But what is definitely the case is that failing to stay within the plus and minus 3 months will directly, immediately lead into a cancellation of the certificate. And this has been made very clear by the oversights that there is no sense of humor. Okay, the CB shall then notify the clients within 7 calendar days. But back in the days, we know there were options to investigate and somehow come back and waive and the likes of. You have now plus minus 3 months for the surveillance audits. Anything violating that time frame will lead directly into a cancellation. You're going to lose your certificate. Taryn?
I just wanted to ask, so everybody's clear, what is the impact of losing your certificate?
The impact of losing the certificate is that the certification body will inform each and every automotive customer of the clients that they are no more longer in possession of a certificate. And if you deal with the big boys, the OEMs and the big tier ones, all of them that we know and speak to would lead in a direct status of new business hold. So you would not even be considered for any new businesses. So it's quite a relevant impact.
So it's like door shutting impact.
Yeah, I mean they're not going to they're not going to shoot in their own feet. So the existing contracts would continue.
Okay.
It is related to new bidding processes or requests for quotations for new projects. This is where they usually get put on hold until they rectify the situation, and that can be quite time consuming.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. 5.2 also, and this is what I need to be very careful to bring this across here. 5.2 deals basically with determining the audit duration for all the different types of audits as they're stipulated here for the initial ones or stage 2, surveillance, research, and transfer audits. Be aware, and this is why I put this down in the presentation, the audit duration, that's what basically the standard is asking, is the sum of the audit days, the minimum audit days out of that table 5.2 that is referred, plus additional audit time. And this is where I need to elaborate, because failing to do certain activities will lead in additional audit time that's going to be added to the audit plans. Audit days, minimum audit days, yeah, that table 5.2 changes. There are not significant changes. As you probably all know, the way a certification body determines the minimum audit days that have to be spent on site comes out of a table, and it refers to the number of employees in the company. Okay, plus you needed to add the employee number on the remote functions and temporary workers and the likes of. And with this number of employees, you could go in this table, or still can go in this table 5.2, and then you see it's 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, and the likes of. What has been changed, folks, is in the rules 5, you had a separation between 1 and 11 employees that would have identified 2.5 days on site. It was 1 to 6 employees back in the days for 2 days, and from 7 to 11 employees, it was 2.5 days. So those two have been merged. So it's starting with, this table starts now with 1 to 11 employees and goes straight to 2.5 days. So everybody that was below or is below 7 employees, unlikely but still possible, would be affected as of now. And the rest, everything after 11 employees is still the same as the table 5.2 in the rules book 5. What is new or more clarified, each member of the audit team must complete at least 1 audit day. That wasn't specified in the last one. That's why I put it in for certification auditors that might listen into here today. The rule still applies whenever there is more than 5 days, 5 days required as minimum days. The certification body must put an audit team of minimum 2 auditors into the team. So that's still the same, but we have certain audits that last 5.5 days. Okay, so the lead auditor would then take 5 days and would rail in another source for half a day, and that is no longer allowed. So each member, once it's called into the team, must have minimum one audit day, and that is without the additional time that is not registered as per IATF time, like verifying previous findings and the likes of. It must be real audit time. What else? Yeah, minimum man days on site shall not be less than 1.5 days, including all allowable reductions. We will speak later about reductions. So no matter how much reductions you can generate the minimum of 1.5 days is now stipulated in clear in Rules Book 6 that have to be spent during an on-site audit, no matter what type of audit it is. 50% of the audit days may now be allocated for audit reporting. That has been slightly increased, surely for a reason, because yeah, if we have some certification auditors listening here today, would probably confirm the documentation and recording efforts that go into these audits these days is, yeah, it's just not it's just next level. So it's also growing. So 15% is now allowed, and it was 10 before. What is a significant impact for all clients out there? That can be severe. Verification of previous minor nonconformities is nothing new for you. That's what an auditor does. All right. But it was up to the discretion of the auditor as to how much time he would spend for it, because he's usually going through the same topics in the regular audit in any case. And that has now been nailed down with the time limits. So minimum half an hour to maximum 1 hour per nonconformity. And that can easily work up to half a day. And there's no way that he can put that into the audit. So that means basically that is additional audit time that will have to be paid by the client. It's not auditing time, so it has to be an add-on time that cannot be covered in one day, because the new regulations also clearly stipulate now that the auditor's day presence may not exceed 10 hours. So now he's already going to stay another day and the likes of. So that definitely will have an impact on the costs and timing and capacities and the likes of for the client. That has been now clearly specified. So minimum half an hour, maximum 1 hour. So now it's depending on the amount of non-conformities you had in the previous run, but there's a huge potential to not fit that in a 10 hours day. What is also new, also probably impacting, not probably, for sure will impact certain clients in certain aspects, is now the requirement says that additional time will have to be added to evaluate the impact of any changes to the scope of the certification. So that's already decided. So there will be additional audit time already, which is it's a chargeable amount for anything that changes the scope. The auditors are really verifying scope changes in the planning phase, and we ask the questions usually, but we often also realize on site that there were scope changes. So IATF realized that, so there's already additional time. That is to the discretion of the CB together with the auditor based on the information you provide, but there's already add-on time. But what is a lot more impactful is the second one, is where audit times for reviewing actions taken in the case of the client not meeting requirements to the customer, to the OEM, in the areas of quantity, which is sorry, that should be quality. Tarek, just make a note before you send this out. So this is quality/delivery, not quantity delivery. So if you have any issues and any complaints from the OEM, AD reports, NCR reports, and the likes of regarding quality or delivery performance. Okay. So, and this is the table that I put out for you here. That is what you see in the rules book. That is additional time. So in the left hand, you can see what size of company you are. So there's smaller 500 employees, 500 to 3,000 and greater 3,000. And then it separates, are you dealing with 1 or 2 OEMs affected or 3 or more? And when you look at these hours here, you can already see that's not going to fit in a normal audit day, because that is also additional time that has to be allocated as per specific regulations. This is what the technical reviewers of any certification body will check at the beginning now, based on the performance data before they release even the audit plans, which is also quite an impact on all the auditors. And the amount can go up to a standalone day if with the 8 hours, if more than 3 OEMs are affected with either quality or quantity issues, and you have a certain size in the big corporations. So there's an extra day of auditing that needs to be considered. So that's a heavy impact, not only for the clients on the cost side, but also for the CB and for the auditors, because there's a lot of reviewing and getting the understandings and the likes of, and building up the audit plans. Then we have permitted reductions. Permitted reductions we always had. Guys, all the reductions that you know in the past, like no design authorities and no design, product design and upgrading from ISO. Everything that is not mentioned here stays still the same, but there's still quite some significant changes in there. Starting with the one, if you have the case that you ever lose a certificate, so a certificate gets withdrawn, maybe for a reason that the company could not provide sufficient evidence during an effectiveness of corrective action check in a special audit after the 90 days, and the certificate was withdrawn. Okay, so you need to restart. Okay, so usually you would start with a stage 1 and stage 2 audit again. So the stage 1 readiness review is not required now anymore under certain circumstances. So the stage 2 initial review is required subject to the following conditions. So if the audit carried out by the same certification bodies, so that's something that must be usually, and I had it myself when I a couple of times needed to withdraw a certificate, that they were changing the certification bodies. So the certification body must stay the same. The lead time of the withdrawal is no longer than 12 months has passed, so within 12 months. And a special audit must be conducted now prior to the stage 2, if that makes any sense. And that special audit to address the major and minor non-conformities. If you couldn't close the NCs, the minor or major NCs during this special audit, you have to go through a special audit. And if it's closed out, you can continue with the stage 2. If they cannot be closed, then a stage 1 is over and above still required to do. So that's basically what it is, but the stage 1 not necessarily under all circumstances. And that is only for withdrawal of certifications. What's interesting is the combined reduction to a maximum. If you utilize all the possible, well, there was way above 30%. Okay, the maximum allowed reduction, if you utilize all possibilities, shall not exceed now a maximum of 30%. And that's what we only had for corporate schemes and the likes of. For corporate schemes, for the ones of you that are in a corporate scheme, the big corporates, only 15% reduction of the minimum audit days now applies. That was different. Back in the days, it was 2 to 9 sites you could reduce 20%. From 10 to 19 sites, you could reduce 30%. And over and above 20 sites, you could reduce 40%. So that has been changed, and it doesn't work that way anyway, because they run out of effective time of auditing very complex manufacturing sites. And the reduction was triggered by the number of plants, which makes actually no sense. And that's what IATF now realized. So the maximum is 15% reduction if you're in a corporate scheme, and not maximum 40% that we had in the past. Audit program requirements, for support functions. The following is applicable to standalone remote support location. A standalone remote function is where no production is taking place. It's not incorporated in a different manufacturing site. So it's just a standalone head office with no manufacturing and the likes of. There is a change that is probably a plus, for sure, a plus for many clients out there. The current requirement was that you needed to do the audit from the remote support functions for the initial audit and recertification prior going on site. Okay, so this has changed in such a way of that after the initial or transfer audits, only surveillance audits are to be conducted at those sites. There's no more recertification for those support locations. So at least one audit must be conducted within a 24-month cycle, within those ±3 months that I elaborated beforehand. So in other words, when you are in an initial or in the stage 2 or in a recertification, you would have to audit the remote functions. Okay. After that, in the new certification cycle, there's no more audit at the remotes. Okay. So every 2 months, so in the second, after the initial and the transfer audit, you only would have to come back in the second surveillance. And then, according to the old rules, a year after, again for the recertification, which is falling apart now. So you're not doing the recertification on those remote functions anymore. You just stick to your 24 month cycle for remote functions, which is a reduction. Karen?
Sorry, I wanted to clarify, and this is in the case of both manufacturing sites versus support sites, such as head offices. What's the actual difference between a surveillance audit and a recertification audit?
That has something to do with the audit cycle. You start, let's say, when you're completely new in the market and you request a certification body for a certification audit. You will start with a stage 1 where it's more or less a readiness check, and if you pass that check, you can do a stage 2 initial certification audit. So, and after that initial certification audit, you have now every 12 months a surveillance audit. So year 1 is a surveillance audit, year 2 is a surveillance audit, year 3, this is where the circle ends, becomes a recertification.
Okay.
So this is the 3-year circle. The difference is that in a recertification, you have to assess the complete management system, as where in surveillance audits, you only do portions of the system, if that makes sense. But it's also on a reduced number of man counts.
Okay, and in those surveillance audits, though, so if you had 2 surveillance audits, would you have to cover the full scope across the 2 that would then be covered in the recertification?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. So the 2 surveillance audits together are a complete management system in itself.
Okay, perfect.
And the recertification does the full system in any case. Yeah.
Thank you.
So IATF observers, folks, listen. You got to be very careful here. I think each and every one of you knows that the IATF always had foreseen so-called witness auditors, which makes it a little bit awkward for the clients, because there's an IATF witness auditor basically walking with you, sitting with you all day long, not saying a single word, which is awkward. The job of the witness auditor is basically to verify whether or not the certification order is compliant to the certification rules. This IATF observer is a new thing, and I'm going to give you the hints in between. The IATF observers are authorized to observe an audit, so you cannot really say we don't want to have them. That's what you need to build into your contracts. And the contracts, the new contracts you will have with your CPs, will already cater for that you have to allow an authorized IATF observer. But who is this person, or who is this individual? Let's have a look. The CP shall inform the client of IATF observers joining in IATF. It's just the same like they would inform you that there's a witness auditor coming. So they also have to inform you prior that there is an observer coming. And the reason why they worked in this next one is this does not apply to areas that involve confidential data. Observers can be excluded from certain parts of the audit. But why is that? Why is that? These are observers and not witness auditors, so it's a complete different function. So who are these people? And if you read this definition by, and this is where you got to be aware, as any person observing an IATF 6949 audit and represents an IATF member organization. So those are your automotive clients. Those are your OEMs. Those are your big guys that usually make use of this opportunity. So in the future, you might be confronted with situations where there is an OEM representative coming to the audit. And that is probably not a very great deal for the clients. And I would presume for younger certification auditors also not the best situation to have an OEM representative. The impact will be the same. I can tell you this right now after 35 years of doing this. The impact will clear. The amount of nonconformity will raise. The amount of major nonconformities will raise. That an auditor would, under normal circumstances, not raise when there's no witness auditor or such an IATF observer. And this is what one needs to be prepared for. So the future will allow IATF member organizations, representatives to be part of the audits, and it will be catered for in the contracts you have to now bring up in any case. How are we looking with time here, Sharon? So 5.7, audit planning. This is also quite interesting. The audit due date for surveillance, recertification, or transfer audits must be agreed upon and confirmed by the client at least 90 days before the audit start. Guys, and each and every one of you that is involved in the certification process will say, no, how am I going to do this? There's a lot of pros and cons in that, but be aware the technical reviewers of the CBs will have an eye on that now. So at least 90 days before that, the audit due dates for all the audits need to be confirmed by the clients. The CB shall provide for a minimum of half a day for the audit planning. So that is what they've probably done so far, but now it's already part of the book. It's now stipulated there's a 0.5 day minimum. You will already have to pay for the audit planning because it's a very time-consuming process, I must say. If the client communicates that automotive production will not take place during the scheduled audit dates, the audit shall be delayed by the CB. What does that mean, folks? There will not be a certification audit if production is not running. I had this numerous times. I was caught completely off guard and they said, no, production line is not running. But then what you do, then you're already on site. So now it's been black ink on white paper, no production, no audit. If the delay passes your ±3 months, it will directly lead into a loss of your certification. So, and no sense of humor. They made this very, very clear. There's no more investigations and the likes of. Even if you have to postpone and the auditor doesn't have time and they cannot allocate any auditor resources and you blow your +3 months, you will lose your certificate. No sense of humor. Just get prepared for this. Okay. Because we still have globally a shortage of auditors. As I said, I think there's 78,000 certificates and give or take 3,000 auditors worldwide.
I was just going to ask that. Why the no sense of humor now? Is it because there were some games delaying?
The rules 5 was not very particular in the description of the requirements. So it was up to the interpretation and you had no grounds. But the rule 6 is a lot more precise in clarifying as to how certain requirements need to be understood and interpreted. Mm-hmm. And this room for interpretation has been cut out in most of the relevant requirements in this rule 6 that I can tell already. If it's not clear, if it's not clearly described, if it's not clarified, you always have room for improvement. You always get to do you always leave some doors open, but but those doors are shut now. It's
black and white.
Black and white, yeah. Client information required for audit planning, guys, be very careful here. This is where clients are also extremely slack, if I may say that, and don't feel offended. It's not my task to offend somebody, but clients with providing information is a catastrophe in so many cases, and I'm affected by that myself. So this is not an assumption. This is a fact story. This is also clear now. The CBs and IATF realize that the client must provide the audit planning information to the CB at least 30 days prior to starting the audit. And the reason for that is because the audit planning, we're reviewing so many more information now. Okay, it has to go through a stage 1 of the technical review of the CB that checks everything before he approves the audit plan, and then it goes back to you. So we need that time backhand for admin. So 30 days to stay out of trouble. The audit planning information is also increased now to what the book says. Now I want to also say KPI reviews, special status conditions, and the likes of, as you can see here, there is several more that need to be provided to do the verification also through the CB stage 1 audit planning check. And failure to provide information can result in delays in conducting audit. The delay of the audit is one thing, but again, if you then go out the +3 months, you're going to lose your certificate. Again, no sense of humor. They made this clear. And it can also result in additional audit time at your cost again. So it's very advisable to respect these due dates just to stay out of troubles here. The CB now reviews the audit planning information and generates the audit plan through the auditor. Back in the days, I could do my audit plan based on the verification that I received from the client. I did upload it on Cara, but there was not really a review or anything like that. So I sent it to the client. But now there's a review check for each and everything. Okay. The client must receive the audit plan at least 14 days prior to the scheduled audit. Yeah, this is a task for the auditors, for us, and for the CBs. but challenge is accepted. The 30 days we need, therefore, because you also want the plan now 2 weeks prior. Client information required for audit planning, that is, goes along. The review of missing materials before the opening meeting is no longer acceptable. That was a rules 5, so I could do extra time to review. That is no longer. The only exception is in around the management review because of the confidentiality, and that's what the book also clearly says. But if not provided before the audit, 2 hours will be now put into the audit plan. So this is why there's a technical reviewer now looking at the audit plan and all the information 30 days prior to the audit event. So it is, the race is on, guys. Let me tell you that much. For all of us, not just for the clients. Systemic problem solving. Folks, if you receive any customer complaints, AD reports, NCR reports from customers, a major nonconformity shall be issued. If no action plan is in place to address performance issues reported by those customers, or the plan is not implemented in a timely manner, and or if the completed actions are not effectively implemented. Problem solving is the #1 most addressed nonconformity in the world ever since I can think. Problem solving, corrective actions, because of the application, ineffective application of problem solving tools. Standard says if any of those 3 criteria are not in place, straight major nonconformity. Thanks for coming. So be aware. And I'm sure that many of you already collected nonconformities towards corrective actions or problem solving. Now it doesn't leave us anything. There's no discussion. It's a straight major. Nonconformity management. What if you receive a nonconformity after an audit within 15 days of the closing meeting for major nonconformities? You need to respond, and you need to respond with the implemented containment and their effectiveness, implemented correction to stop the bleeding, and for the root cause analysis, including the methods used. You don't have to have the root cause analysis, the corrective actions implemented, but the root cause analysis. Let's be up and running with the systemic approach, with the Ishikawas, 5 whys, whatever methodologies you use must be very transparent and very, very plausible. Let's put it that way. Within 60 days of the closing meeting, evidence for the implemented corrective action. This is all for majors, guys. So 15 days response, that used to be 20 days. Now 60 days is clear. Many certification bodies played the 60 days, but it was never really stipulated in the book in Rules 5. But 9 and Rule 6 it is stipulated. Within 60 days of the meeting, you have to have evidence of implemented corrective actions, and the effectiveness of these actions must be verified with crystal clear evidence. We have too many repeat failures, folks. Every time we go out, there's repeat failures, and we are not always writing it down because we just try to talk to the clients and say, listen, guys. But one must admit it's problem solving and analytic problem solving and root cause analysis is not in a great state in this industry worldwide. And I've done this in 50 countries worldwide. It's just everywhere the same. And failure to submit the response for a nonconformity within the allowed frame, no happy days, straight losing your certificate. So that is what it is. Then we have still the option of 100% resolved conditions. So if the nonconformity is not closed, but it's 100% resolved, always applies just for you to see 100% resolved status I give when the implementation of corrective actions is linked to a high investment IT solution systems and the likes of that cannot be managed within the 90 days. But you trust in the root cause analysis and you trust in the action plan, then I can give as a certification auditor a 100% resolved condition. But if so, that a special one-time audit to verify the effectiveness of the corrective actions for those must be conducted no later than 90 days before the next scheduled audit. That is new. And 30 days before the special one-time audit, where I do verify now your 100% resolved conditions, must submit the evidence of corrective actions into CARA. That's going through the JSON file again. So I can upload it on the CARA system. So 30 days. And if the special audit is not able to verify 100% resolved, happy days. Thanks for coming. Here's your certificate gone. Technical review and certification decision. After the closing meeting, the client will receive only a draft person. I have made my life so much efficient over the last 30 years in reporting. So I was always able to present the final report during the closing meeting. It's no longer allowed simply because the technical review team from the certification body in their step one make an audit documents completion and the likes of. So I can only provide you now with a draft report, and the final report will, after that step one tech review, will come 20 days after the closing meeting. Okay. The starting date for decertification is the date of the audit closing meeting. That has not changed. That is always the same. I just added it there for you to align us all, and not the date of the final report received. So it's the day of the closing meeting, if you want to call it that. Nothing has changed there. Just to move you out of the way here. So clients must therefore not wait for the final report before they begin to address the NCs. So full steam, whatever you get in the draft report, you can also go. There won't be changes much. They're not going to question the NCs per se. It's just the surrounding documents and the likes of. So you can start shooting out of the holsters and fix those NCs. You don't have to wait those this month. Certification decision shall be made within the maximum 120 calendar days from the day of the closing meeting. Also not new. So 514 letter of conformance, just for clarification, letter of conformance. If you have a business on the line with an automotive client, but not yet, but in the line, you're in a bidding process, and the likes of, you can apply for a letter of conformance, where the certification body basically comes on site and verifies in the stage one and the stage two audit and confirms to you that you are compliant to the requirements. It's not a certificate, it's not an IATF certificate. And what is new here now, that if you request, if after 12 months, it's only valid for 12 months. But if you need it longer because the business is still not landed and you need to request a new one, there's no more stage one required, and a 30% reduction on the stage two will apply. Okay. But you have to apply to get to not go into a stage one audit. You have to apply before the previous LOC expires. That's what it is. Chapter 6, application process. Yes, guys, must be a signed contract in place. I said this at the very beginning, and I say this again. This is important. Please do not wait until Q4 to get a new contract, because of January 1 we rolled. Everything must be implemented. And to get to a valid process or contract is time consuming. I can tell you that, no matter what CB you're working with. So please start the process tomorrow. Chapter 7, audit types and remote auditing. Remote auditing became very modern during COVID times. I believe you all remember that. generally be assured IATF audits don't like the remote audits anymore. So generally, please understand IATF audits shall be conducted on site. All right. However, there are some exceptions as stipulated here. The first one, if there's a key person, a key player missing during the audit, you can rail him in on site to buy in. We do this many times. But a remote audit may only be conducted at a standalone remote support location, and you cannot do any remote audits where there's production, warehouse, or material handling running. So you can only do it at support functions. Okay. Remote. And yes, and it's also linked, and no more than once in 2 consecutive surveillance audits. So you cannot make it a modern theory now and say every year we do it the same. So not more than once in 2 consecutive surveillance audits. But it's still, under certain circumstances, you can do remote audits, but however, IATF audits will be done on site. That's clear. Chapter 8, decertification, action after certificate withdrawal. When the certificate was withdrawn due to ineffective implementation of systemic corrective actions, a special audit is required before an initial certification audit is conducted. I had this a couple of times where I did withdraw. Had to. It's not a nice thing to do, but they went straight, called another CB, and and 2 weeks later, a new CB was coming and did a stage 1, stage 2, passed the test. Happy days. Thanks for coming. And IATF now says there's a reason why a company loses a certificate. Sorry, I need some water. There's a reason why they lost it. So before anybody takes over here, no matter what, there is a special audit required before you even start the initial process again. And that's basically what this says. And these special audits you can do again and again and again till you pass, and then you go into your stage 1, 2 process again. So that is also new. And there was not really key changes to Chapter 9. That's the records. That's for the certification bodies. And the terms and definitions, also nothing really special. So in order to close this up, I think we are well in time. This rules 6 of the rules book, guys, provide a lot of clarification. Not so much dramatic changes. It's a lot more clarification than anything else, but it has certain impacts on costs for the clients, on admin efforts. The rules 6 say that it tried to streamline and make the whole process more efficient. I would respectfully disagree, but it is what it is. The IATF system requirements have not changed yet. And also the sanction interpretations and the FAQs that you know from the previous rules 5, they are no longer valid. They'll all be null and void. And they've all been worked into the Rule 6 books. So there is no more SIs and FAQs from the old days from Rules 5. Guys, if you have any more questions, I would sure we can take, please find us. Taryn will give you all knows where to find us. If you want to discuss something else, I'm more than happy to make time to take some of the parts offline. And this is me, Taryn, back to you.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, I've got a couple of questions here. Dorothy is actually throwing questions at you, Hans. Thank you, Dorothy. So first up, what happens, I kind of like this one because normally the client has to do everything quite right. What happens if the auditor does not provide the audit plan in the 14 days? Many times we get the audit plan the day before, even when the information is provided 30 days before.
Yeah. What's going to happen is the technical reviewer will pull the auditor's ears, but not with any severe consequences. He will say, guys, be careful. And that's about it.
Okay. Dorothy, I was expecting that answer. Okay, can a SARL standalone remote support location receive a letter of conformance?
No.
Okay.
Cannot, for one reason, because in order to be able to apply for a letter of conformance, the aim is for the certification of IATF 6949, you have to have a manufacturing site. And a remote function does not have any manufacturing, and consequently, the LOC is also not within the scope of given. No, you cannot.
Okay, thank you. Simple and clear, hopefully. If anybody else has any more questions, please pop them in chat or Q&A. Hans, if you don't mind just flipping to the next slide there. I wanted to confirm if anybody has any follow-up questions, we will gladly answer them. If not one of us, then one of our consultants can get in touch. Please get in touch with us or visit our website, ht+a.solutions. And that is where, Dorothy, to answer your last question, where you would be able to access the podcast as well as the recording and the slides via the blog. I expect that I can have them up hopefully by end of day tomorrow. We will also send out a newsletter if you have subscribed on our website to receive communications from us. So in case you haven't, please will you go to ht+a.solutions and just subscribe in the footer of the website. I saw a raised hand there. Sibusiso, did you have a question? Then I raised my own hand, which I didn't mean to do. Okay, it's down. Hello, Jacob. Thanks for joining again. You join all of our webinars. I really recognize names over the years. A remote company site, that is, the department is not at the assembly plant location, but has design, engineering, and prototyping functions. Can it be audited remotely?
The remote site is not in the manufacturer. I'm just trying to understand if I understand the question. So
can you remotely audit the department not at the assembly plant, but it is design, engineering, and prototyping?
No, you cannot. There is a table you will find once you're in possession of the books, which functions as per IATF can be considered as online from remote function, which one cannot. No, if you have prototyping and any sorts of development involved, you cannot. Also the 24-month rules just for surveillance audits is not linked to design. That hasn't been changed. If you have in a remote function your design authority, you have to audit them every year. So then you're also not within the 24-month cycle. That hasn't changed. Engineering, design, product design shall be audited every 12 months, every audit, just like the manufacturing. So no, you cannot.
Okay, Jacob, I hope that's clear. We've got 5 minutes left on the allotted time. We actually planned this one well, Hans. Our timing isn't usually the greatest. If anybody has any last questions, feel free to pop them now. Otherwise, we're going to start wrapping up. Please also do visit the site where we have additional webinars coming up later this year. In September, one titled, Are You Drowning in FMEAs? All the FMEA requirements out there. And then in November, how to drive an effective process management culture. And that's an interesting one for me, not being a manufacturing person per se, but with the changes that have happened in our organization and in becoming ht+a this year, we've really implemented a process ownership based culture. A lot of changes and a lot of learnings, and I've really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to, by year end, being able to analyze how we've gone through these changes this year. Pierre, can you purchase Rule 6 through ht+a? Yes, although we don't have copies, don't have any copies yet. If you urgently, if anybody urgently needs, please get in touch. We might be able to also procure the digital versions via the e-reader. But apologies, we don't have copies yet here in South Africa. And I think that is it then. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Hans.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks, guys. All the best.
It's a good one. Bye.
Bye.